So, welcome back, it's us. Another 10-minute Pod Boys podcast thing. So, Wookie,
Yes.
we've just watched the Salad Fingers theory from, what's it,
Film theories.
Film theories, yes, their theory. So, Salad Fingers, well, what's your theory? I want to hear what that mind of yours thinks. Do you agree with the film theories person?
Actually, pretty much, yeah. There are a few things in the video that he covered that I had already felt on my own.
Yeah, huh?
And the rest of the stuff, it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I'd just seen random.
He is Hubert Cumberdale.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm keen on that idea that he is Hubert Cumberdale as well, but
You see, that part I never thought of, but I did know of the disjointed conversation.
yes.
Split across the two things, and I did also believe about that it's World War One era.
Yeah, it's definitely post World War One. He's definitely got
Shell shock.
yeah, that was a real name, shell shock. PTSD sounds gay. He had shell shock, but he definitely had shell shock. He definitely survived the war. I personally think he's in an institution. Hence why he's often, hiding in cupboards or behind bars. He's weeping. I think he's been institutionalized because he's a bit loopy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That has always, to me, been sort of the point. That Salad Fingers has been committed because of his PTSD.
Yeah, I can go with that.
As for the rest of it, I'm not sure. The idea of him as Hubert Cumberdale, a coloured child, technically,
Yeah.
is an interesting theory. I'm quite open to that idea, and the idea that he doesn't actually have a place in reality at the same time. But I also think he was institutionalized myself, not just because of his PTSD, but because he acted out because of PTSD.
And growing up being essentially an outcast amongst everyone you know would probably also fuck with your head quite a bit.
Yes, that's why he's green. He's odd. I always had a theory that he was committed because he was loopy. And because because of the war, but I personally think he acted out. Yes, they constantly references the film theory fellow said it references babies constantly, the abandonment and father issues and all that.
Yeah.
But I also think I take it to another level. I think yes, I agree with that. But I've always thought that he himself essentially became a killer of children, a serial killer, because of the. You remember there's the episode the kid ends up in the oven. Or the abandoned babies, yes, the abandoning babies, and so forth. There's a lot of baby-related stuff, dead brothers, dead children. There's a lot of death involved. So I think he actually went completely loopy during the war and ended up acting out because of it, and ended up killing some people, probably youths, probably some children.
I can see that.
And then that's why he's alone in a house in the wasteland, because he's literally locked up in a nut house. For the fact he's fucking loopy.
That actually would make a lot of sense if you think about it.
I have actually before. But I've always went to the idea that he is Hubert and that that was an interesting theory. I liked what the fellow said there.
Yeah.
That he is Hubert Cumberdale and the horse was his mother. So technically.
Yes.
Well, that makes sense. That Jeremy Fisher, his father, was a brown person who got offed by a white person. His own grandfather murdered his father. I think over the 10 episodes, definitely the first 5 were definitely introduction to some strange things.
Yes.
Episode 6 onward, it got very peculiar.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely bizarre. But, what do you think?
It's like you say, when you see the abandonment and the baby imagery, and I'd say he's some nutter in a loopy house.
He's definitely committed. He's at the right time period and all the rest of it. The Great War he references. They worked out in film theory that he's around about 1939 because he mentioned certain items or certain small things, but they were dated to specific dates that they worked out. So I can see that 20 odd years after the war, he's as nutty as a fruitcake. Dead relatives, dead friends. He's probably committed murders because of it, and then he's been committed. The image at the end, though, with he becomes one, it sits at the head of the table with the group. I think, as the guy said, it's the lost lovers.
Or lost family.
Lost family. In a way, yes, it is. It's the lost family. But I also think it's the duality of lost family. It's lost family as that's what the hares represented, the family. But the 5 of them, there's 6, the platoon, the soldiers. So I think that was essentially him finally, if we will, perhaps coming to terms with what has happened.
Maybe he even died within the institution. Oh no, leave it. The screen's frozen.
Okay.
It's still running. The screen's just frozen.
Okay, well that's
My computer does that.
peculiar. But yes, I think that's why the men, the people at the table, the other one's got no bottom jaw, the other one's eating his own brains. I think it's what's left of his squad after, say, the Somme or similar sort of battle where everyone got the British had the living ship bombed out of them by the Germans.
And maybe he's died under care, and this is now him rejoining with said squad.
Maybe perhaps that is it. He's finally come to a complete understanding, a complete realization of what he has done or experienced and so forth. And then him, as you said, leaving the house at the end is him finally moving on to the next world. And he's rejoining the squad, and they gave him a hat for his birthday, sort of a welcome back to the group. Perhaps that hat's made out of the child.
It's made out of the child who ended up. It's the one that he hooked on the hook,
which is perhaps reference to victims, or what the reason he's in there. He perhaps murdered such a person. That's why the hat is. It's symbolic of the person he murdered.
That's why maybe. You've actually got me going on something.
Yes.
Maybe he's not in a mental institution. Maybe he's in purgatory.
A good theory as well. I've seen
that desolate wasteland. Maybe he was.
Apparently, you've never been to Essex.
But well, my girlfriend did tell me to kiss her where it smells funny.
Went all the way to Watford.
But
the Thames Estuary, baby.
Maybe he was maybe he wasn't shell-shocked as per se. Maybe he just grew up as this alienation for being this bastard child of an unsavory person, being alienated by his whole family, snapped him, and before the war he had done the child murders.
Perhaps.
And then he and his whole squad had been killed. He'd been killed with the squad in the war. And now he's essentially in purgatory, suffering the reliving the essence of what screwed up within him. And at the end of the film, he is now processed through it all and come to terms with things, and now he can rejoin them or something.
Rejoin the squad and move on to wherever it is that they're going, heaven or hell or wherever their destination is.
Yeah,
I quite like that theory. That perhaps he joined the army for a reason, to get away. He did a few murders and he decided to do a runner and joined the army. He was going off to war. Maybe the crime would die down, but he didn't come back from the war. Him and his lads got blown to pieces. Yeah. I've always thought with that as well, that the hands themselves, these salad fingers, I've often thought that's because of... Oh, look, it's working again.
Yeah, if you wiggle the screen, the picture comes back.
If you look at the end there again, with the guy, the no jaw, the guy with his eating the brain, I think because his head got blown off. I think salad fingers, if you look at his hands, because of the way they are,
shredded by shrapnel.
Shrapnel and or barbed wire or so forth. There's a lot of reference to the Doctor with the claws. There's a lot of reference to sharp materials. I think I could see him getting
the
caught.
rusty. He likes the feeling rusty thing. So maybe a rusty piece of barbed wire or something.
I could see him stuck on a bloody fence in the middle of the Somme, dying slowly, his innards spilling out or what have you, hands ripped to shreds as he's trying to pull his way out of the wire, only to then be finished off by the Jerrys who just blow his head off.
That actually is an interesting thought.
It's not the pursuit of his childhood, as it were. It's actually him coming to terms with what he did before the war and then having to process and move on from there.
Yeah, I like that theory.
That's just a theory. Your screen crashed here.
Yeah. I fixed the software, but the hardware on the machine's still buggered.
That's sort of my idea.
Yeah, that's...
What about you? What else do you reckon? Mr. Fingers. The puppets, perhaps relatives, lost lovers, family, it might be. Jeremy might be his father.
I like that concept that maybe Jeremy and the woman are the parents, and then like they said in the thing, that Hubert is then the representation of himself.
They have a similar shaped head, apparently.
The fact he's constantly always ostracizing Hubert the way that he would have always been ostracized.
Especially for being a half-chat, as they called them then. It would be, a Cooney. They'd have a lot of different terms for them. Because they're people of mixed heritage. Especially that during the turn of the... People, we weren't all liberal tree huggers. It's one thing to have black people in your country and treat them equally, but to have them having sex with your white women is, oh my God, it would absolutely destroy nations, that sort of thing.
Yes, you're polluting our bloodlines and toffee noise.
Yeah, we don't really need to. We pollute our own bloodlines. We're human, but yes, I could see that he's a mixed race child. He's got ostracized for it. Abusive grandmother, perhaps, who detests him. Because remember, the mother dies during childbirth. His father gets offed by his grandparents. Who knows? His grandfather might have been lynched for it. There may be.
Yeah.
There's definitely been some stuff with lynching. I'm sure there's. I haven't watched them all in a while, but I can see that he ends up getting raised by his overbearing granny, who didn't really like the fact he was half brown, and therefore pretty much beat him around the head constantly.
And that would be represented via Anti-Brainbridge.
Yes. And then essentially he may have gone loopy and may have actually committed murder or something. Perhaps the hat child at the end there, the one is perhaps the representation of somebody who just went too far with him when he was perhaps younger, and he ended up putting the kid on a meat hook.
Maybe it was Kenneth. Maybe he killed his brother.
Half-brother, then it would technically be, his half-brother. Or perhaps his half-brother died during the Great War and he himself didn't go at that early stage to the war. They essentially ostracized him for being a coward, as it were.
Could be.
You know, or that fact Kenneth died, he died more the heroic way. He's buried, he's dead and buried, as you see, decayed.
Yes.
Salad Fingers is not. Therefore he's not a hero. He's been called scum his whole life. He killed someone because of it, and he died. Stuck on a barbed wire fence in the middle of no man's land, bleeding to death, while all his squad mates were lying around him with their brains. His only actual family he's ever known are lying around with their bits missing because the Germans have gunned them all down. And then he himself ends up in purgatory and goes to, or perhaps he does survive and ends up in the nut house because he's completely unraveled. And then the final episode is him coming to terms with it and getting a hat out of his victim and meeting his squad mates once more.
Yeah, that's actually... I like this theory.
Yeah, I've had it a while. I like the film theory people's one. I like that idea that it's...
I love the way MatPat's brain works.
That's a lot of work he puts into it. Sometimes I just randomly waffle and see where it takes us. We do, but I like that as a representation. Perhaps the Doctor represents trying to get the horse, war horse, being very popular. Perhaps they were part of the cavalry. Maybe that's why there's horses referenced everywhere. We did attempt to use cavalry during the First World War, but machine guns versus horses is not a good combo.
Yeah.
Perhaps the Doctor is the representation of trying to remove the infection, if you will, from the horse, i.e. removing Salad Fingers' as guilt out of him as a cavalry person.
That's interesting.
Because his brother was Navy, I think. Kenneth was Navy.
Yeah, because he referenced him as a sailor.
Yeah, so old Salad Fingers was just, in the war, probably, maybe as cavalry division, perhaps a scouting party or something, that came afoul of the Germans.
Yeah, because there were only, 6 of them?
6 in total.
So yeah, maybe like a little scout squadron.
Yeah, and they were all blown to bits, and he was the last to die, or he survived and went completely flipping batshit crazy.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
That's my theory.
I like this theory.
Yeah, we'll send it to the film theory guy and see. Wait till Matt Hutt does a video of him tearing his eyes out in response to this crap we come up with. But no, that's why I think that well, I was about to say PewDiePie. PewDiePie is a representation of war guilt. Yeah, so that Salad Fingers is actually just a loopy person.
PewDiePie is what happens when someone like us gets popular.
Yeah, but he's a bit too hipster to be like us.
Yeah, because he became popular.
Yeah, but even then he was still too hipster. We're too odd to be popular.
Yes.
Yeah. You're more like the Ninja Brian around here, except you're clumsy Brian.
Yes.
Bad ninja. You're like Ross. And Danny Sexbang had a child with Aaron in a dark room, and Ninja Brian watched.
Actually, I'm very like Aaron because I always walk around with bare feet.
Yeah,
I haven't
scruffy.
watched any of the movies everybody assumes that everybody's watched.
Well, we're very similar in that way because God knows I've been pretty much masturbating full time to Poldark and Downton Abbey, and everyone else is watching Spider-Man remakes. I haven't got a clue what Spider-Man we're on or which new X-Men's coming out, but I can tell you now, I think Poldark is actually going to get his mind back, and I'm feeling positive that he'll win the love of the woman he wants in good old Regency, England, 1797. Yes. Also the fact he's Irish, so he's permanently shit-faced.
Well, of course.
He's a good man. Right, well that's that. That's